Welcome back to Manufacturing SOS. Today's episode is all about price and what happens when you make that your first question that you ask a manufacturer. Because I see this all the time. You've got a brilliant idea for a product, a dream buzzing around in your head, and you're ready to make it real. But what's the first thing you do? You go to a manufacturer and you ask them, how much it's going to cost to get this made? And I get it, you want to know if it's viable or not. But what happens when you ask a manufacturer for a price straight off the bat, especially if you send the same message to 5 different factories, is that it leads to disappointment and bad decisions. Because all you do is you get these initial cost prices, if they give them to you at all, and you sit there comparing numbers, thinking the cheapest one is going to be the best deal, and it isn't. Or what you try and do is negotiate and barter before you've even had a sample made or visited the factory. And if you start bartering at such an early stage, a manufacturer is instantly going to assume you don't understand how production works, you're going to be really hard work to work with, and most importantly, they'll think you're only interested in price, not in building a proper relationship. They'll probably also feel a teeny weeny little bit insulted, and that's how bridges get burnt. So today I'm going to teach you how to get the price from a UK manufacturer that you're actually going to be happy with and make you look like a product development pro without feeling deflated. And I'm going to show you my counterintuitive method for getting a good cost price. And that starts with setting a realistic retail price. And I mean a realistic price for a UK made product of good quality. Don't just try and pluck a number out of thin air hoping that that's what people are going to pay, and definitely don't try and undercut everyone else. That's a total race to the bottom and it never ends well. Look at your competition. What are similar brands charging, and what's the price point for a comparable product that's also made in the UK? And then once you've landed on a realistic price that you can sell the product for, then what we're going to do is work backwards. You're going to ask yourself, how much are my materials going to cost? How much fabric do I need? What are my trims, labels and packaging going to cost me? And if you're going to have to order any of those from overseas, which you sometimes do with raw materials, you've also got to factor in the cost of shipping, duty and VAT. And then once you've got all that down, look at what's left. That's your target manufacturing price. So let's say you've done your market research, you want to sell dresses and your target retail price for a certain dress is £90. So to make a basic profit margin, especially if you're selling direct to your customer rather than wholesaling, that's a whole different story. If you're just selling direct to the customer, you want to make that £90 dress absolute maximum for £45. Why 45? Well, that gives you a 50% margin, and that's really the absolute lowest that you want to go. Now think about what that £45 has to cover. So let's say you've set your heart on some beautiful wool fabric woven in Yorkshire. It's £25 a metre and you need a couple of metres to make your dress. That is going to blow your entire budget just on fabric. That's before you've even added on labels, buttons, zips, packaging and everything else, plus paying the factory to make it. So you've either got to adjust your retail price or you've got to find a more affordable fabric, but something has got to give. And that is where most founders go wrong. They skip all of this and they go straight to the factory, expecting them to tell them how much the product's going to cost without doing their numbers first. And if you haven't done the maths first, you've got no idea whether what you're asking the manufacturer for is actually realistic. You could be asking a factory to make something that's basically impossible and they can't ever produce it at that price, and you wouldn't even know if you hadn't done your maths beforehand. So let me give you a little bit of a reality check. The UK minimum wage is now around £12.50 to £13 an hour. That's the absolute bare minimum a manufacturer would be paying their staff before they're covering their own overheads like rent, electricity, insurance and making a profit for themselves. So if your costings leave the manufacturer with £5 to make your product, you're effectively asking them to make it in minutes. And that's just not going to happen, especially if it's a very small production run, because factories need large orders if they're going to manufacture efficiently and give you a better price. This is where having a realistic target cost price is really useful, because it gives you a figure in your head that you can work towards. And by the way, if you're not sure how long things actually take to make, which you probably aren't, I have got a spreadsheet that lists the average standard minutes for common garments. So drop me an email to kate@makeitbritish.co.uk with the subject line standard minutes and I'll ping it over to you. So why can't manufacturers just tell you a price straight off the bat? Because a good manufacturer will price by the minute, and they need to make a sample to know how long it's going to take their factory to make it. They also need to know how many you plan to order, because if you're making 100 of something, it's much more efficient than making 5. But if you pressure them for a price too soon, they're probably one of 3 things. Number 1, they will quote high just to scare you off. Number 2, they'll quote low because they're desperate for the work and they want to get the job. Or number 3, they'll just pluck a number out of thin air just to end the conversation and get rid of you. None of those is going to help you build a long-term relationship with a manufacturer. So here's what to do instead. Once you've done your backwards pricing and you've got a realistic target in mind, you can approach a manufacturer and say to them, this is what I want to make, this is how many I'm planning on ordering, and this is the target cost price that I'm aiming for. Does that sound workable? Now you're having a proper conversation. You've shown you've done the groundwork. You've thought about your margins, costs and quantities, and you're not wasting their time. So here's the bottom line. If price is the first thing you ask about before you've shown them that you understand your products, your costings and your retail price, your raw materials and your quantities, you're basically showing them that you're not ready. And manufacturers can spot that a mile off. Watch the previous episode in this series about why manufacturers are ghosting you to find out more about that. So if you want to be taken seriously, work out your numbers first before you ask a manufacturer to do so, and you'll get a much better response and a much better price.